really long, aren't these eights? If a bit of wind catches them, the pivot point, it can just really throw you off.
I know, and you can see when they say go, if you're in the wrong angle, big problem.
Well, we've seen that a lot this morning, so hopefully both coxes are very happy with their lines here. We're underway in this, the Friday of the Princess Elizabeth Challenge Cup, and a matchup I'm sure we must have seen in this PE event before. Abingdon, St Edwards, both classic schools to have at this stage of the regatta, and it looks like to me it's Teddy's St Edwards on the buck station that's taking the advantage at this point, Catherine.
It is, you're right, and all these schools, we see such amazing sort of, over the years, incredible sort of competitions building between them. There's such a pride in trying to take on this event at school level. They get amazing support from obviously family and friends who are usually here as well. But it's tight as we come along the island.
Yeah, certainly can't write off Abingdon yet. And Abingdon, it's been a little while since they've lifted the Princess Elizabeth Challenge Cup. It was actually back in 2013. They did it 2 years on the bounce, 2012, 2013. So this crew trying to build on a legacy from, well, almost 10 years ago now. It looks like they've moved out now off that settle.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that's nearly 10 years ago. It's quite worrying. But exactly that. They will be looking to the crews of the past, saying, boys have done this before us. We want to be the next ones to do it. And at this point, and again, we talk about in an 8, when you start to move even about half a length, that starts to feel a bit more comfortable because the 8s have this huge momentum behind it. So if you've got the momentum in your favour, you can start moving at every single stroke. You can sort of take a person in the boat, and suddenly it starts to feel a little bit harder for St Edwards.
Well, we were talking about how long the boats were with the wind, but how heavy they are as well. These are the biggest boat types we have here at the regatta, and to lift that thing up and out, it must take quite a lot to do that in unison.
Yeah, you think, the 8, the physical boat itself is the heaviest boat we have. You've obviously got the 8 oars with them as well, which adds a bit of weight. You've got the cox, and then you've got the 8 athletes themselves. So cumulatively, that is a big weight to shift down the river. Now, of course, you've got 8 very strong athletes moving it, but it means when it gets up to speed, you can sustain that speed reasonably comfortably. Don't say too much comfort because it's hard work clearly. But as we say, to change the gear, to take it up another level, it takes a lot of work.
And you multiply the sort of challenge when it comes to getting 8 people to do that in unison, and you'll know that when you go into bigger crew boats, it gets harder and harder to ensure that the crew do everything together.
Yeah, and this is why when you look at these crews, they will all train, almost the same standard, the same sort of equipment. They'll all be equally committed. And then sometimes what you see the differences is this timing. When you look at this is a great shot when you see the blades going into the water, the more precision you get in that detail, the more sort of timing that is absolutely exquisite between the athletes means that you'll just have a more efficient boat and less wastage as you go down the course. And that starts to build up as you go down quite a long course, the Henley course. So you want to be as efficient and as together as possible.
Well, we were saying that it's a long way, it's a long course, as you've just mentioned, and Teddy's sticking to Abingdon here. So St Edward's School on the left-hand side of your picture, Abingdon on the right, an Oxfordshire derby, in fact, actually. St Edward's School, who row out on the sort of meadow stretch, don't they, in Oxfordshire, and Abingdon also based around there. Very much a derby to see who will go on to face Eton College in the next round. And actually, St Edward's doing a really remarkable job of eating into the lead that Abingdon have established.
Well, this is it, because normally what you often get is once you've got that, we talked about early on the race about half a length, if you're leading that, you want to keep taking a bit more. Now, the best thing a crew can do that feels that if they feel they're having a crew rowing away from them, is you stop that happening, you stop that slipping, and you move back. And what we've seen now is Teddy's have now got the sort of the positivity coming in, because suddenly they've pulled back the distance that Abingdon had got. And when it's level like this, then the confidence goes back to Teddy's.
My word, look at this. What a brave effort from St Edward's School. They've come from a length deficit to now being almost a third of a length up in an 8. That's very rare to see.
It's rare to see, and it's brilliant to watch. And what happens is this, the cox will be calling them back on. He won't want to have lost that half a boat length. She won't want to have lost half a boat length either. And what you see is when you can call your crew back, you're not just closing down the gap, but you're now overtaking the gap, and you've got the advantage. Now mentally, that is a very, very hard thing to be rowed through by Abingdon crew. So they will have to do a lot to pull themselves back together and to try and do the same as Teddy's has just done to them.
Well, I think this is almost a shock result here, and St Edwards have caught Abingdon napping. Abingdon bronze medalists at the national schools. This crew, led by Daniel McNamara in the stroke seat, just being left behind here by this young crew from St Edwards School. It's a young crew consisting of 2 J16s. We're looking at them there on the screen. Rory McDonald in the 2 seat, one of those 16-year-olds competing at his first Henley Royal Regatta, having taken up the sport just 2 years ago, and now they're looking back at, well, previous winners of the PE here, Catherine.
Yeah, and I think we talked about earlier about how you make those changes and advantages in the 8. I think looking at that blade work there, the St Edwards crew is actually really, their precision is actually far superior, and that's what's given them an advantage as they've come down the course. Their blade work looks just a bit cleaner, a bit neater, and it really has. I mean, they've not just rode through Abingdon, they're taking lengths out of them now, and that's very impressive to see in an 8.
Yeah, it is so rare to see in an 8 at every single level. We cannot even begin to describe to you how much effort that takes to not just, you know, catch up and lead by a small margin, which we often see in the bigger boats, but they've rode 2 lengths up and more so, and they're continuing to array. Do you think it's the confidence now of having rode through that they're sort of, they've got that bit of vigour and they're building on it?
It gives you a huge lift. If you go down early in the race, as St Edwards did, you know, you have to overcome it. You have to shut out any doubts about now we're this lower crew. And when you can row back through a crew, then it almost gets easier and easier. The boat feels lighter, and it's such a mental game at this point.
And, you know, to the contrary, Abingdon, having been rowed through, I mean, that is a really hard position to be in, right?
Yeah, because physically at this point, the race, you've given everything and you're still not back on terms. So, you know, the final stages, they'll know they've not got enough distance to catch up, and this is going to be St Edwards' race.
Well, we're into the closing stages. Look, the Henley town backdrop there as they move in towards what will be a very pleasing victory for them. I think we're going to see some very happy boys here in this Princess Elizabeth Challenge Cup Friday race. They will be delighted to have overcome the strength of Abingdon School by over a length across the finish line. And wow, that was all done very maturely through that middle portion of the race.